Hello, hello, hello. Happy Friday the 13th. Didn't even realize it until Patrick put it in the chat. Patrick, thanks you for reminding me. Good morning, John. Sterling putting in the news and the some key numbers. Good morning, Sterling. What else do we got? What else do we got? We'll go over numbers in a second. There's good morning, Patrick. I knew I saw that in there. What else? Continuing with Friday the 13th theme, S&P stocks greater than 200 day. Is that greater than 200 day moving average declined 13% so far this month? This rally is very, very narrow and very insane. Oh, good. Apple's already trading 10 times sales. Oh boy, what could go wrong? What could ever go wrong in this market? Nothing. It's going to keep going until it doesn't. Yeah, didn't they miss? They still are up on revenue, but they missed revenue expectations, and it's up like 20%. What else? Costco missed on revenue. That was and it held up. You know, the market will keep doing insane, but valuations nobody cares about them until they will. Uh, we have the import and export numbers. Import and export. Look, still, I mean, this is not disinflationary or deflationary. Import prices month over month still climbing year over year, 1.3%. So you had a horrible 30-year bond auction yesterday that's when rates reversed and started really moving higher again. What else do you have on here? More, well, I think we know inflation is on the rise, but the Fed doesn't care. Supercore inflation jumped 4.3% year over year in November, remaining above 4% for almost the entire year. Yep. Yep. But the Fed's going to do what their Fed's going to do. Good morning, Royal Palms. There we go. Here we go. There's Broadcom. Was a missing on revenue, but let's buy a stock already trading above 150 PE and bid it up another 20%. Hello, Charles. Costco. There you go. Beat, miss on revenue, and look at the revenue numbers compared to last quarter. Look at that. Look at those. Good morning, Ted. Restoration Hardware was a miss. And it was up. Restoration was another one. Restoration Hardware getting bid up after a miss. Costco missed on revenue big, and it's flat. Restoration Hardware up 13% on a miss. And I thought it was up over 20% earlier. Maybe it's just 17. Thank you, Royal Palms. So, the insanity continues. Let's just buy it all. Hold your nose and buy it all. Thank you, Sterling. Here's your here. Oh, it's up 18%. Oh, 18.18 now. So it's trading around, but geez, it's not cheap. Nvidia rallying in unison with it. Tesla up still. Google Map. Some of these are taking a pause, but Apple up with the potential thing. You have technology. Let's just refresh this. Technology leading the day again. Just buy all your big tech and hold your nose because AI is going to solve it all. Fed watch still pretty much locked in for the rate cut next week with inflation starting to rear its head. Still in neutral mode. Schiller PE 38.55. And as we already talked about, Broadcom, Costco, Restoration Hardware, no earnings today, so we are done. Good morning, McRangers. Good morning, Daniel. We'll be fading the gap up this morning. You know what? That's exactly what I'm sort of looking for. By the way, we do have a potential double top in here on the S&P. Would need a close below 60.39.75. Other than that, you have a nice little triangle pattern, my favorite. You can see the nice little triangle here. By the way, for people who are new here, that was sarcasm. Triangle patterns are reliably unpredictable to trade, but you do have one there. So that's what I'll be watching for. I'll be watching for the potential rollover being on Friday also. But the very key resistance area is right around the 6,095. Very key support is coming in roughly about 60.50 to 60.55. So those are the areas I will watch for support or resistance reversals unless we start really breaking down through 60.50 and then end up triggering the potential double top. If it were to run through 60.95, it's 61.10 again is the next key area. But that's about it. Remember, we are at daily cycle bottoms holding the rotation zone. Dark screen is not a fan of December price action. We do in the NASDAQ have a little mini potential double top still technically in play even with this spike up. Again, these may never trigger, but it's good to know where they are. Coming right up and reversing, we had 21,847 as a reverse harmonic, just missing that 21,843. But if it trades through 21,874, the potential double top is off the table, and you see the first and second targets are within the candle bodies. So it's completely valid. That would need to close below 21,604 to trigger. Prior to that, you have very key support about 21,720. I already gave the upside levels. Again, on any rally, I'd be watching again 21,840, so 21,850. Then there's a significant cluster at 21,875. The Dow back between the 50 and 62% harmonic. With cycles at the bottom, if we get any rotation into some safety, you might get something in the Dow. I'm going to be watching for that next week. Next week is what I'll be looking for, a bounce play potentially in the Dow. Because we are between the 50 and 62.5. We have the hooking over a rotation zone, so this would be a bounce play only. The Russell, same thing, going to be watching next week for a potential bounce play, coming back, trading down to the 62.5. Again, this is nothing I touched today. You know, as we've talked about Fridays, and those are notoriously my worst trading day of the week. And we have options expiration next Friday. Don't forget, Fed meeting and options expiration. So we could still see some interesting moves through OpEx next Friday. The DAX just keeps climbing on up. So far, still a sideways correction. The only thing I'd be watching for a breakdown is below 20,330. Other than that, this is too sloppy of a double, so I'd still be watching that base 20,330. Then it's got to follow through below 20,300 to break down. Other than that, trend is still up and massively overbought. You see the big continuing reversal in the note futures coming into a key potential bounce area unless it closes below 109.30 and a half. You can see the yield climbing up. The yield, which dipped initially yesterday after the PPI numbers, which confused me, and then with the poor bond auctions really reversing. Closing in on the 4.36, a close above that means on pullbacks again, I'll be watching more aggressively for buy patterns, and we could easily be returning to this 4.45 to 4.5 area over the next few weeks. Good morning, Heinrich. Good morning, Anissa. So, dollar triggering yesterday the double bottom, coming up close to the first target, but not there yet. So I'm going to be watching for any pullbacks and then rotations back up. You may wonder, well, it's cutting through the wicks here, but it was completely valid on the 4-hour. And you see here it's going into the candle bodies. And it was triggered on a 4-hour basis also, with follow through on a daily trigger. So I'd be paying attention. It's already pulled back to the 4-hour rotation zone and the prior support or prior resistance becoming support level. So I'm watching for that rotation to continue back up. Maybe not so strong today, being a Friday, but going into next week. Crude, still caught back and forth trading. If it rallies, my major resistance there is 71.40, 71.50. Their long-term setup from a trend perspective, nothing. It's just trading support and resistance, so there's not much to talk about there. Natty Gas has returned to, remember we had a little minor double based off the roll, but we've now turned into a proper double. Not expecting this to trigger, but it is on play. If we do break out to the upside, here's where the reverse harmonics are great. So the target area, 3.65 roughly. 3.63, 3.65. The next cluster is 3.7. 1 to 3.73. Gold, massive reversal yesterday, coming back down. So we had the percent beat buy, the shake and bake buy, which got to the first target, the second target, missing the 87.5 target, still not invalidated, but this is nothing I'd be holding on to based off of this price action. My key area now to watch for support is back at about 26.72. Silver, again, just breaking down, not able to close above the 62.5. Remember, it completed the double, not able to follow through with a close above the 62.5, and yesterday, big reversal. So, watching for this, I'm actually watching for this to reconnect with the 200 now. Copper, we have a triggered double top on a 4-hour basis. So I'm watching for a pullback in that. What else? The yenster continuing to weaken again, trading up to the 62.5 and bouncing off. So it'll be interesting to see if we close that. Even with a pullback, any kind of pullback, we're getting the first cross rotation zone again. I'm going to be watching for a follow through, a close above this 153.70 level, and then continuing with the yen weakness. We need that close though. Euro, not much to talk about. Getting a little bounce between the 50 and the 62.5, but I'll still be watching. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Because this dollar double bottom is triggered, I'm going to be watching for rollover plays in the euro. Spiders. Still just looking at the harmonics. Actually, on this little, and these harmonics are getting really narrow, but we technically closed below 62.5. It's another reason I'm going to be watching for rollover plays if they set up, especially against key resistance. So that's what I'll be watching for after we reticked. Remember, we hit the, if I flip this around, remember, we hit the 87.5 on Wednesday. Yesterday was a down day. Today with the gap up. But I'm still going to be watching for the rollover plays. That's one of the key things right there. The Qs. On any rollover play in the Qs with the insane buying of Broadcom going through the moon, any rollover play, I'd be looking at yesterday's open, which is 527.68. What was yesterday's high? 528.96. So technically the first target would be 528.96 and 527.68 before the close. To the upside, 531.43. And then with this pausing bar, the little short-term levels, if we do continue higher, 532.04 and 533.47. So this would be an area I'd be looking at a breakout to raise a stop, and then 533.47. Bitcoin's still pegged to that 100K area. Not much to talk about there. Anybody, let me know in the chat. Do you think it's a good idea if, based on, I know you put that in there, Sterling, about Trump talking about getting rid of like the FDIC and a lot of banking regulations. Do you think that's a good idea or a recipe for disaster? Oh boy, I think it's a recipe for disaster. We're already having the regulators just aren't doing their jobs. And to get rid of the regulation, oh boy, with the amount of fraud going on, that's going to be really, that's going to end really well. What else? Richard, FXI. Remember China talking about, well, now we've had, so here we had, look at these secondary reactions here. So if we had this little bounce, not able to get even to the 50% harmonic and keep trading down, but China's still trying to do the stimulus thing. Again, a third bounce. They're trying to keep this thing pumped, but I'm watching, unless this closes back above 34.45 in the FXI, I'm still watching for rollover plays every time. Rollover plays every time until it closes above 34.45. China's in a massive deflationary path. They're going to have to keep weakening yuan and try to stimulate, but the problem is their governmental policies are destroying it. So that's not going to change long term unless you get a regime change in there. Tesla still trading around that 420 area. Next target's 453. Nothing's changed there. Nvidia, which is bouncing with Avgo and Unison, but I'm still watching for breakdown. Nvidia's looking very, very tired here. Here's your Avgo. Here you go. I put up the harmonics, by the way. So we were trading closer to 222. I've got to look at that. I want to look at that. Hold on 1 second. Extended trading hours. Yeah, we were up to, what was the high here? 216. So if it continues to rally, 222.65 is the next key harmonic, with 204.50 being the harmonic support at that point. Avgo trading a mind-blowing, this will get adjusted, but 159. And the earnings, I mean, the earnings are climbing. It was a miss based off of a miss on revenue, but revenue is still climbing, but it doesn't justify to me 160 times earnings. Costco, and I'm shocked at this one. I mean, down a little now, but look at this. So estimated were 66.5 billion, coming in 62.15 billion. What was the prior? The prior was 79 billion. So Costco, look at what is down from the prior. 79 to 62. That's a $17 billion swing, and look at what the price has done. I'd be trading this lower if fundamentals mattered anymore. I'd be trading it lower than the last earnings report. And look, Costco's not cheap. Look at the price earnings on Costco, 60, with earnings dropping. Again, pure insanity. Here's your other one, the Restoration Hardware. A miss. Okay? A miss, and this thing up. Oh my gosh. Let's gap this thing up. Nothing makes sense anymore. Nothing makes sense in this market. It makes sense from trading with the trend until the trend ends, but it does not make any sense from any fundamental metrics whatsoever. Yeah. Sterling said, take a look at ZB, which is the 30-year bond future. It closed below 62.5 after a bad auction. So at this point, again, you have the rotation zone. It's broke down, especially this was one of the key days, by the way. I don't talk much about the 30-year here. I watch more of the 10-year. But this was a key day back on Wednesday, December 11th. Breaking down below very key support right here with a large candle, and then every tap into the rotation zone just getting sold. Now it's followed through with the close below 62.5. So on any rallies, yeah, I'd be watching for the return. We could easily return over the next month or so back to 115.30, where it found very major support before. I was a market maker for a while, dark screens. They don't manipulate everything. You don't. No, the market's gone insane because valuations don't matter and there's too much money flowing in it, and the fret and we got loose money flying around. The Fed isn't in restrictive territory; they're in very loose territory. It will continue until it doesn't. CVS. I mean, CVS from a long-term perspective. Oh boy, I'm expecting this to return to you. You have 34.78. I was roughly in the 34.50 area. So yeah, we're in the same ballpark. I think unless I'm slightly off on a harmonic, I'd be using 34.50. But again, you're talking an area. We're not trying to nail an exact number. Yeah, options volume is changing. It's turned into a gambler's market, which can go the other way very abruptly when it breaks. But there again, besides these, look, S&P, besides your little mini topping pattern, besides the little potential mini topping pattern, I mean, that doesn't even take it back to the 50 EMA. And the 50 EMA is where it's found the last couple bounces in that area. It doesn't even take it back there. Is that a major topping pattern? No. Are we still wedging up? Yes. Is this a recipe for disaster if something breaks? Yes. Has it broken yet? No. But at some point, things will return. And everybody's saying this time it's different. It's AI. It's this, and this. This would be the first time it's ever been different. But you got to trade with the trend until the trend ends, as I talked about yesterday on Ninja. Now, if we trigger this double top, then it's more patient on waiting for a little bigger pullback. By the way, this is another clear example. If this double were to trigger and we went to the final target and then followed through with a close below 59.51, then I'd be targeting more so the lows around the 19th of November, 20th of November. That's another area. Who manipulate? I wouldn't say the market's manipulated. I say it's just insane that you have all the leverage from all these options, all these triple long ETFs which are leveraging everything. You have the passive money flow is still strong. If you don't know what passive flows are, great person to learn about that is from Mike Green. Okay, but that's still, you got passive flows. He's projecting the passive flows will be more topping out towards the end of 2025, but we're getting to a topping area in the passive flows, turning from positive to negative. The passive flows have been putting an underlying bid to the market period, and then you have companies doing buybacks. It is much harder to trade the downside than the upside, and stocks over time have a tendency to rise. That's why I wait for very strong patterns. And if you don't like to short, then you wait for the key levels to get hit and watch for buy patterns. But what happens is when the market turns, everybody who's been buying the dip continues to buy every dip, and it keeps making lower dips. So that's where it gets challenged, and that's where it starts piling on when all the dip crowd just keeps buying it much, much lower. That's where people got wiped out in the last two big pullbacks, 2007, 2008, and the dot-com bust, especially in the dot-com bust. I know people who ran accounts up, to over $1 million, and they walked away with literally zero in their trading account a year later because they kept buying every day, and it changed. Eventually, the S&P will go to 7,000 beyond. Does it have to tomorrow? No. They don't know something we don't. Eventually, it will go to, just like eventually the Dow will trade, the NASDAQ will trade 100K. At some point, it could take 20 years. With that, so the only bearish pattern is here's the watch in the S&P right now. That's the only really substantial bearish pattern. With that, I'm going to call it a day. Have a happy Friday. Little selling pressure going into the open. Let's just see where the tick's opening. Let's see where the tick's opening. That's not a strong, that's a pretty halfway decently weak, not very weak tick opening, but a decently weak. See, this is such a narrow rally. So yeah, this just reinforces. I'm going to be watching for rollover plays. Rollover Friday plays. What is it? What is this? I don't understand. We do not agree with the response. What are you talking about? Those flying objects in New Jersey? How can't we figure out what those are? Everything's insane right now. It doesn't matter. That's where I'm wrapping up. Hope everyone has a wonderful weekend in the holiday season. Getting closer and closer to Christmas time. Yeah, the drones. But then there was reports that they were actually manned. Who knows? I'm shocked. We can't, with all the technology and advancement, we can't figure out what these things are and where they're coming from. Really? That's more worrying to me. Or we know and we're not saying. So, with that, I shall talk to everyone later. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. Bye for now.